I want you to listen to this exchange as I go into the poll, what it really means, and why it's important for you to question the polls. I want you to listen to Chris Wallace, who I respect. Chris Wallace from Fox News on Mike Gallagher's show. Now, Mike is a radio guy. You probably know he's a radio guy, and he's doing an interview with Chris Wallace. And listen how hostile Chris Wallace is. Listen.
What do you mean Romney's in trouble? What, because of this poll manipulation crap?
Oh, let me just say something. This poll stuff is, the criticism of the polls is craziness. I actually did some research on this today, which is more than you've done.
Stop. How do you know that?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Which is more than you've done.
I mean, you want to talk about questioning the great and powerful Oz. My gosh.
Yeah, it's
Listen
like,
to
how
this.
dare you?
I mean, gang, you're gonna have to do your own homework. Just do your own homework on the press. But do not be very, very, very careful. And I say this about left and right. I say this about libertarian and big government. I say this about me. You have to do your own homework. You have to know who you believe. But be very, very careful. A lot of people owe a lot of things. Be very careful on where you get your news and who you repeat. Only say the things that you know to be true yourself. Don't ever take somebody in the media, including mine, don't ever take their word for it. I know I try to do my best. We do an awful lot of research. We get it wrong sometimes. We'll correct it if we get wrong. But it is still also my research and my opinion. You have to do your own. But when it comes to the news, oh boy, are they freaking out. Remember, they have an 8% approval rating. 8. That's lower than Congress. People, 8% say, yeah, I can trust the news. 8. They are in the throes of death right now, and it's just catching up to them. They don't even know why. They're just now, it's now dawning on them, we might be in trouble. You know what it is? It's the same thing the GOP did with the Tea Party. It's the Tea Party's fault. And they are going to try to crush anyone who speaks out against them on all fronts. Warning. Okay, so let's listen to the rest of this.
The polls, no self-respecting pollster in the country, including Fox, I might add,
right.
When they poll, and they're trying to find out things about people and to weigh it, they will weigh, how many men, how many women, how many blacks, how many Hispanics, because that is immutable. But to ask somebody what your political opinion is, do you consider yourself a Republican or a Democrat, that changes all the time, so they don't weight it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Who's asking polls to be weighted by political opinion? It's not that. We're questioning the results of your polls.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're questioning is, yes, we understand how polls work. You don't call up somebody and say, well, we think there's 47% people are voting for Mitt Romney. Since we only got 45%, we should change it to 47%. No one's saying that. I understand the thing with, you're going to make it so if you only get 4% respondents are African-American, you might want to raise that because we obviously know there are more than 4% African-American. The point, though, is that your sample keeps coming out with a more enthusiastic Democratic voter base than in the 2008 election. No one who's followed anything. Barack Obama had a 70% approval rating when he won that election. No one believes that is going to carry over to now.
No one believes that. No one believes
just
that.
Common sense. So the point is not that they've been manipulated or they should be weighted differently. It's that the samples are obviously flawed. It could be a problem in the model.
Because everything has changed. Look, they're weighting everything as a 2008. Nothing is as it was in 2008. The entire system is different than it was in 2008. Everything has changed. I've said to you before, if you're not redesigning the world, believe me, it's being redesigned for you. Make sure you understand the world is changing. It is. And they're using the old model. Okay, great. Let's just say this model works out. It's still, 47-44 in some of the worst polls? I mean, not, the consistently polls that are showing him ahead. What is it? Maybe 3 points?
There's some that have hit 5 and 6, but the last 3 polls that have come out have been 2.
Okay, 2 points. How is that a bad thing? That's statistically tied.
Mm-hmm.
So the narrative should be that it is tied, but it's not. It's not. The narrative is Mitt Romney's in trouble. Mitt Romney's in trouble. He's in trouble. He's losing. He's losing. It's tied. Don't change the polls. Don't ask for them to change anything. I think that's not tied. I think it's the other way. But let's just take it. It's tied. Why wouldn't the narrative be that it's tied? This has nothing to do with the polls being changed or anybody manipulating polls. This has everything to do with the narrative. Why wouldn't it be that the polls are tied? Well, 2 reasons. 1, you depress the other side. If it's tied, if it's close, you're excited to go out. But if it's not close, you're going to be like, it doesn't matter anyway, and I'm not really for that guy. But it's tied. It's close. You have a chance. There's a shot. You're out. That's the first reason. Make sure that it looks like it's a blowout. But I believe the more insidious reason is this. If you know how George Soros always overthrows government, and remember, he said the main obstacle to a just new world order is the United States of America. That's not Glenn saying, I think he meant. That is a quote from George Soros. That's when, quoting him again, he decided he needed to take on the United States of America. He is looking for an overthrow. He calls it a slow deleveraging and a slow decline, a managed decline of the United States of America. And that's what you're getting, gang. That's what you're getting at your bank account and inflation and everything else. And he does it the same way. He's done it in 5 countries. He does it the same way every time, and every time it happens around an election. But it doesn't happen before the election. It happens after the election. What does? Riots in the street. What are they saying? The election was a fraud. His side always comes out and says, it was fraud. The poll numbers didn't show that. This was stacked. He's not legitimate. They are setting us up for fraud. They are setting us up for 2000. Now, they may not even think that, but believe me, he has. Believe me, the Fareed Zakarias that are on the phone with him, you can bet whether they've had an open conversation or not, or it's just the conversation of, what's going to happen is these darn Republicans are going to steal this election. If it's close, they're going to steal this election. We won't survive another 2000, and he knows it. If you want to survive as a nation, forget about Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. If you want to survive as a nation, get your ass out and vote for one of them. Every single American should get out and vote for one of them. It should be a landslide one way or another. If it's a landslide for Barack Obama, so be it. So be it. I don't understand it. I don't get it. I will not be a part of it. But so be it. That's what the American people want. The same thing with Mitt Romney. If it's a landslide, so be it. Most Americans are fair, but they're, depressing you on a tie, trying to make sure. Remember, Florida was won with, 536 votes? All they have to do is convince 536 of you to stay home. That's it. You think they can do that in the next 4 weeks? You're damn right they can. They've already done it. Because he's not a good guy. He might be a felon. Look at how desperate he is. He can't communicate his thoughts. He doesn't have any of the experience. He tied his dog to the top. He's a racist, Of course they've convinced 536 people to stay home. Will they convince you to stay home? And you have to make sure you're saying, even at the best, these polls show it's a tie. How is it that How is it that Barack Obama, who has all of the power, all of the press, all of the money, the complete labor union wave behind him, why isn't he in trouble? Why isn't he in trouble? It's tied. He should have a landslide. He's the Messiah. He's Jesus. It should be a landslide. Excuse me, the conversation is a coin toss. It's a tie. I choose to say Barack Obama is in more trouble politically than he's ever been in his entire life. Don't let them get away with saying that it's a landslide, that he's beaten, or that all the polls show. Because what the polls say, even in their flawed state, it's a tie. Don't you let them create that narrative. It's important because the minute Barack Obama loses, the minute he loses, if that's the narrative that everybody believes, the next narrative will be he stole the election. And don't think that the Black Panthers and Occupy Wall Street and the Arab world and everyone else that wants to see the United States topple and have revolution won't be in the streets saying you stole it from a black man. They will. Make no doubt. Soros doesn't collapse a country before an election. He collapses it after the election.